Let's talk about the nerves. I'm not talking about those feelings that give you butterflies in your stomach, maybe when you're about to go on a first date or you're going to speak in front of a crowd. I'm talking about those cables inside our body that help communicate the electrical messages that we need for our heart to beat and for our brain to work correctly and all of those functions that our body requires to stay alive. Let's talk about things we can avoid to help support this system. I want to get the bad things out of the way first, and then we'll focus on some positive things that we can do to help this part of our health. So things that we want to avoid would include tobacco and alcohol. These have been linked to risk factors for dementia and other diseases that affect the brain. And when the brain doesn't function correctly, your nervous system is not going to function correctly. So you want to be aware of the things that are taking a toll on your brain. Artificial sweeteners. These have been linked to things like fibromyalgia and seizures, also related to the nerve system. Sugar in general, this constant consumption of sugar impacts our nervous system, which plays a part in our dopamine production. So when we are constantly giving ourselves that sugar, it's making it so that we have to have more and more of that sugar for our nerves to be able to communicate to the body to kick out that dopamine. And dopamine is our happy hormone. So it also affects moods. So many of these functions of the body tie into other functions or hormone production, things like that in the body. And also fast food. The more processed a food is, and especially the more fake things it has inside it, like fast food does, that's just going to trash your system, and it's not doing the brain any favors, or the gut. And the gut is so closely related to the brain, which is related to the nerves. You guys see how you really can't take one part of the body and just separate it from the rest? So let's talk about the things that are more positive, things you can add, things you can do. See, the list wasn't long of things you had to avoid. But let's talk about some things that you can easily add into your lifestyle to give your body that boost it needs to stay well. So the healthy diet is extremely important. We just talked about removing things from your diet, but it's also really important to add in some healthy things. When you remove something, your body needs something else to come fill that gap, if you want to call it that. So get good fats. You need to have a lot of good fats to support the brain. Your brain is made up of mostly fat. So you need that to give it the fuel that it needs to stay alive and function. It also helps to balance our blood sugar for longer periods of time, which also very much affects how the brain can function. When our blood sugar is doing wacky things, the brain doesn't know how to cope because it needs that balance. Also, more protein. This is also just a great fuel for the brain. And then look for foods that have less ingredients. Like I said, fast food is so processed, but so is a lot of other foods that we get from the store. So try to look for labels that have less ingredients. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go organic. If you can't afford to do that right now, full transparency, not everything in my kitchen is organic. It's just not in my budget at the moment. But I do my best to find the things that have fewer ingredients or stay away from those processed things in our food. And then also consider adding in fermented foods into your diet. These help with the neurotransmitters that help produce some things like serotonin and our other hormones that support our mood and the brain. So those things can be really helpful, and you can go do some research on what good fermented food options there are out there. Also, get some exercise. It helps to get neurons firing and all that sort of thing to help the brain work as well. It makes the muscles and lungs and all those things move, which then the brain has to think about controlling all of them, more so than if you're just sitting on the couch. And that's something I have to work on. I know that's one of my lacking things. And then care for your emotional health. This really does affect your brain. Stress is the root cause of so many health issues that we have. or if we can get to a good emotional state, it's going to in turn affect every other aspect of our lifestyle, really. And then build a social network. It can actually lower your risk for dementia and cognitive impairment, which is awesome. Obviously, if we can do something that simple to lower that risk, why not? But make sure that the people in your social network are positive. You don't want to be hanging around negative people, because as they begin to talk negative things over themselves and over you, it's going to bring you down. You want people that are going to edify you, build you up, and challenge you to be a better person. Move on to some spinal cord health things, because this also affects our nerves, because our nerves travel through our spine. Some things that you can do to support the spine specifically is exercise. We talked about this for the brain, but it's also important for the spine. Massages to help relax the muscles around it when they're uncomfortable, so that the spine is not being tweaked one way or another. Chiropractic care, you guys will never stop hearing me talk about chiropractic care, because it's literally changed my life, especially in relation to migraines. But it's really important that your spine is aligned from that atlas bone, the very top one at the base of your skull, top of your spinal column. It's important for that to be in place so that the rest of the spine can fall into place and all the nerves can flow through there the way they should, so that communication can pass through those nerve pathways. So upper cervical chiropractic care is my personal favorite, because it does focus on that atlas and make sure it is in place, but it also cares for the rest of the body as well. So it's not like you have to get that on top of other things. It's the whole package. And then proper posture, when you're standing, sitting, working, looking at your phone or an iPad or whatever you may have, being aware of trying to keep in a proper posture. I know as I record these videos, I've noticed that by the end of the video, I'm kind of lower in my chair and a little more slumped. So just trying to be aware of things like that. So what about some foods for nerve health? Eat raw food. And by that, I don't mean like grab a piece of chicken and eat it raw out of the packet. No, not what I'm recommending. That's dangerous. But find food and eat it in its form as close to its original form as you possibly can. So the more we cook something, especially the more we heat it, the more enzymes and nutritional value it loses. So you want to avoid the microwave. Like, I do still use mine because I just haven't gotten to the point of replacing it, but it kills so much of the nutrient value, and it's like literally on my list of things to move out of my kitchen next. So the more you learn about those, I'm not going to give you a deep delve into it, but I will just say, especially the longer you microwave a food, it's definitely rapidly losing nutrient value. And food is our fuel. We want to eat the best thing and be able to get like that energy and everything we need to function. Also, like steam some things, and you could put it in a slow cooker so that it's not getting that microwave, or the oven is good on the stove. There's lots of different ways to do that. Yes, they're a little more time consuming, but I mean, you can't get easier than the crock pot. You just let it cook all day long. It's seriously my best friend in the kitchen. The one room in my house that I'd like to forget exists because I hate cooking, but that's a whole different thing. Vitamin C, this can reduce nerve pain. It may promote the repair of damaged nerves, slow aging, boost your metabolism, and potentially reduce the risk of autoimmune diseases. So this would be something that would be super easy to add, because it comes either in supplements or in your food. Like, you can find vitamin C in food, and I'm not going to list all of the foods that these things come in, because one, I want you to learn to empower yourself and do your own research, and two, I don't want to sit here and read a list to you like a robot. I feel like that would be really boring to listen to, and I don't want to bore you to death. I want you to take what you've learned and move on to whatever that next step should be. Good fats, we talked about this for the brain. So you want something that's high in omega-3s. Avocados are one thing that are super good in high fats. Fish can be as well. I am personally not a fan of fish, so that's like not in my menu. But if that's something you enjoy, there are types of fish that are good in fats. These can support the body's natural inflammation response, which will reduce nerve pain because it's not putting pressure on them. And it can also promote and maintain overall nerve health and healing. So not just supporting the brain to give it what it needs to thrive, but also affecting the nerves themselves. So kind of a double whammy there. Vitamin Bs, and I have this written down because I would have never remembered it all, so I'm going to read this one to you. Vitamin B1 helps turn carbs into energy, and the nerves need that to function. So giving your body, again, proper fuel that it needs. Vitamins B2 and 6. 6 allows the body to absorb vitamin B12, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And 2 allows for the proper absorption of vitamin B6. So you need 2 to be able to use 6, and then 6 to be able to use 12. And then B12, this is needed for the nerves to function properly, and a deficiency of this can actually contribute to nerve pain itself. So sometimes it's not that there is something physically wrong with your nerves or with the pathways. It could just be that you're lacking a nutrient that it needs to function without strain. So if that's something you deal with, I would highly encourage you to look into adding some vitamin B into your diet, whether again by supplementation or food. Then antioxidants, these have been used to manage pain and even diabetic neuropathy. So there's lots of different foods, again, that you can find these in supplements as well. I have a particular favorite supplement, but if I were to name it after telling you what I just told you, it would be completely non-compliant. So if you want to know about my favorite supplement sources of these things, shoot me a message. If you're listening on the podcast, connect with me there as well. But I'd love to tell you about them. I just don't want to get flagged by the 3-letter agency that controls what we eat and what are on shelves that are considered OTC treatments for things. Then also water. Everything in our body just works better when it's properly hydrated. Our body is a high percentage of water. I did not look up that statistic, but we have to have it to function, and it is my Achilles heel. Exercise and water are like the 2 things I know I need to work on and the 2 things I don't want to work on. So 100% real for you there. Ginger, this has been proven to cut back on pain because there is a compound in it called gingerol, Gingerol. Well, gingerols. I'm assuming that would be plural. But I don't know a whole lot about those. Again, go do some more of your own research. Like, here's a fact, go find out some more about it. I'd much rather give you guys a taste of something and you go find what you need for yourself than like throw you everything, bore you to death, and then you never be able to go learn something by yourself. So I hope that makes sense. Then last but not least, turmeric, because the compound curcumin is in it. This is highly anti-inflammatory. So many other benefits that this compound has. PubMed is a wonderful place to go study some of these things. PubMed.gov, PubMed.gov. You can type just about anything in there and it will bring up all sorts of scientific peer-reviewed studies that they have published over years and years. So that is what I've got in here for today. Some of my information did come from neuropathycure.org. I wanted to give them credit for what I found on their website because this is by no means completely original with me. A lot of it is from different sources who I have listened to. So I hope that if you know someone who struggles with some of this, that you will take this information and pass it on. If you're listening to the podcast, share the episode. If you're listening via Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, share the video, tag a friend, something like that, because my goal in anything I share is to empower others and give them the knowledge and tools that they need to change their lives. So we will talk again next week.